sexuality, one of my favorite topics. I think it's important that you have people you can be authentic with and not be afraid to be yourself. So this video, if you want to pour a glass, is designed for you to feel like you can just be open and honest, and maybe you haven't had anyone to talk to about the topic of sexuality, but it's very healthy and important to define this part of you. In my opinion, you have fitness, nourishment, your passion, your career, but there's also this big part of your soul, your sexuality. And two of my favorite things is science and sexuality. So we could just my personal opinion is we all, as humans, have DNA that is passed on to us. So we're all genetic. And when I was in school, I loved the field of epigenetics. And what that means is you can carry a certain gene that makes you vulnerable, let's say, for example, to depression. If you are in an environment that is supportive, nurturing, you have your basic food, water, shelter, love, safety, the gene may not express. You may just kind of stay in a neutral. Let's say, for example, something's taken away. Let's say food is threatened, right? So in an eating disorder, you kind of self-induce, you pull away the food. Now it takes you to this next level of vulnerability. So maybe a gene starts to turn on, it starts to express, epigenetic. So based upon your environment, the gene might turn on or off, which could make you have symptoms of depression. And then if you get the tools you need to be healthy and rebalance, maybe you come back down to the neutral. So you no longer have the symptoms or the behaviors, they're managed. So I was curious about the genetic part of it. Also trauma. I mean, if someone has been physically abused by another partner in a relationship, they may think, that males are not safe, so therefore I'd rather try being with a female. Or if someone's not heard or understood or emotionally abused, and it seems like a pattern of men that they're with are always belittling them or telling them they're not enough, then they might say, well, obviously men don't make me feel emotionally safe or understand me, maybe I'll just try being with women. So there might be a lot of reasons you're questioning your sexuality, and I think it's really important to kind of sit down, pour yourself a drink if that's something that honors you, have a nice happy hour with a friend that is open to perspectives of life, get a little philosophical, and every feeling and question that pops up, just question it, So for example, the first time I ever felt any sexual attraction to someone of the same sex was when I was personal training, and I remember I had this client of mine doing some exercises, and she had this beautiful necklace that just dangled right here in the clavicle, and she was sweating, and the necklace was just right there so beautifully, and I had this feeling like, ooh, what was that? That was weird. And I just, I was in a relationship with a gentleman at the time, and a beautiful relationship. I was very happy in my relationship. But that was the first time I felt something that when I went through this phase of kind of reflecting over the years of my life, I recalled. Also leading up to that, I think it's normal part of development that sometimes kids experiment. You play doctor, or like, hey, what's that? I don't have one of those. Can I see? Like, what does that do? I definitely had a phase of experimenting, and sometimes I wonder, those girls that were a little bit older than me that were playing like, let's make out, and other things that may have happened at that age in my life. Did that have an impact on me being attracted to male and female now? If that didn't happen, would I have known that that's fun, that felt nice, that was interesting? I don't know. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but what I do know is if you have those feelings, those are yours. Your feelings to explore. They can be exciting, they can be intriguing, but what they shouldn't be is something that makes you feel guilty or like you're not enough, okay? Tying into sexuality, my personality, I've learned over the years by working with therapists, is I tend to be more of that codependent personality, where if you're happy, I'm happy. If you're happy because I fold the towels into the laundry, well, I'm gonna refold the entire laundry room and the towels are gonna be perfect. Now you're extra happy, now I'm extra happy. So maybe that's covering up for something inside of myself where I don't feel safe in my own body with my eating disorder. I constantly feel anxious about everything I eat, and when I'm not eating, I'm like anxiously thinking about, am I gonna eat enough? Am I gonna eat too much the next meal? So for me to distract myself by being amazing for my partner and making them say, oh my gosh, you're so good, you're so great, you're so perfect. Oh, my girlfriend, she's the best. She cooks for me, she cleans for me, she doesn't just cook, she's an amazing cook. So I do things externally to feel validated, to feel enough. When in actuality, you, just on your own, should know you're enough. You shouldn't have to people please or be in this kind of codependent, I'll do this for you so I feel better relationship. But as I was healing along my path of recovery, I found it was interesting that I would be drawn to someone that had characteristics that I was lacking. So for example, one of my relationships was with someone that was very physically fit, and they knew nutrition science, and they were a hero to me. And they taught me, how food works, energy balance, and I used to over-exercise, but they taught me, actually, you don't have to exercise every day to maintain a healthy weight, or you don't have to eat that little to see your body change and be thinner. You can actually eat more and look more physically fit. So I had got into a relationship with someone that I could absorb that knowledge and energy because I didn't have it for myself. It can be helpful, but it also could be harmful. So there's been situations where I got into a relationship with someone where they emotionally were like a rock. Their job made them have to be so strong on the surface, and I wasn't strong emotionally. So being in a relationship with that person made me feel I'm strong. It's almost like I could fake it to be that equivalent partner, where when we were going out to eat at, a really wonderful dinner, I would just kind of play the part, like, oh sure, I'll have the pasta, the bread and butter, and a glass of wine, and I'm freaking out subconsciously, like, oh my gosh, I can't eat any of this food, it's gonna make me so fat. But they were so successful in life, powerful, and I wanted to feel safe like that. And so I faked it. And it actually kind of helped me a little bit in my healing recovery, but the inside was not healed. I only felt safe because I had them to have structure, to have emotional calm. They, in a way, were my God. I did everything for them. I lost myself in the process of putting them on a pedestal like they were the God of my life. And unfortunately, what I missed out on is actually, nope, they're human. So when this person started to fail and I didn't have something to fall back on, then I felt very emotionally unstable and insecure and turned to other external things to feel good enough, to feel sexy enough. And so it was kind of a learning process that when you sit and you look at the relationships you choose to be in, what were you attracted to? What did you get out of it? What were you missing that you really needed to provide for yourself? So that's something really important to consider. I kind of went off a little bit of sexuality, but how do you define your sexuality? I mean, society says, like, male and female, you know, the husband and wife, she starts a family, he has a great job, she raises the perfect family, good grades, they, you know, dress well, they have good manners, you know, they have a good sex life. And then you watch the 50 Shades of Grey, where it's like, oh, it should be wild and crazy. And so you kind of think your sex life is supposed to be a certain way. But when you grow yourself up and you're the adult, you actually get to say what you like. So another part of my experience in relationships is I was that codependent lover. Well, if you like this in bed, I can do that, plus I can do this. And so, of course, that was fun for me. Oh, my little puppy is hitting the camera. But later on, I realized, like, did I enjoy that sexually? What did I get out of it? And of course, like, if I'm pleasing my partner, my personality is that makes me happier, but do I even like that type of sex? Or do I like that anatomy? What is it that I truly need in a life partner? So when I finally, it took me a good year and a half of reading books, of just sitting by myself and reflecting on, you know, what I've been through, the sexual relationships I've been in, the experiences I've had, my emotions, what I'm attracted to physically. This is another important part. When I was in 5th grade, I was called chubby, and my mom put me on a diet. And if you've looked at leading causes of eating disorders, anytime someone goes on a diet, it's a very high percentage. I want to say it was like 75% to 80% of people that start a diet end up having disordered eating pattern or a diagnosable eating disorder. So being told that I was chubby was one of the most emotional, traumatic things I could ever experience in my life. And when I found someone that I thought I might become his wife, I might be a life partner with, and their body didn't look a certain way, I started to become that critical person. And then I took a step back and I was like, wait a second, society and the world and, you know, like my role of being in health and wellness tells me, like, you have to be perfect, you have to be thin, you're not good enough if you're not. Watching the movies, right? Like all those people in the wild sex scenes, like the girl has the amazing body and 50 Shades of Grey, right? It's all like perfect. And the visual is, if you have this, then your sex life is great. Then you have, like, don't lower your standards. You need to be with someone that has a perfect body, the perfect job, everything, right? To be happy. But what I realized is that little girl that was called fat, that was put on a diet, that developed a severe eating disorder and didn't feel comfortable in her body for a very long time, deserved love. She deserved to be loved just how she was, because I am good. And in my opinion, if you can find someone that has a heart of gold and that is not afraid to use their heart, that's what's most important. So I had to take some time. Why am I feeling like I won't be happy unless my partner's body looks a certain way? And I realized a lot of it was society told me I'm not good enough if my body doesn't look a certain way. So I had to sit down and say, well, what is my definition? And I realized my definition is someone that loves me for who I am, that has a heart that is very similar to God, unconditional love, doesn't love me if I make a certain amount of money, if I look a certain way, if I talk a certain way, but loves me for who I am, no matter what my external looks like, and chooses to be with me for my soul. And what I love about my fiance, and I always tell people this, is his heart reminds me of God's heart. And what I told him recently was, you're not afraid to use your heart. So if you've ever been in relationships where your heart's been broken, or you did everything for them and it still wasn't enough, stop for a minute and become the person to provide all of that for yourself, the fun swankiness of your sexuality, you manifest that. You share that with someone special. The security, you work on your emotions. You develop your emotional security. You don't necessarily need to be with a woman because she seems more gentle, more accepting of your femininity. And if you need to cry, she'll hug you and say, oh, you're beautiful when you cry. No, you know that. You know that you're beautiful if you need to cry. So all of those concerns that my potential life partner doesn't have all these things for me and I need these things, I'm not going to settle before I feel safe choosing this life partner. No. How about you provide all of that for yourself and you sit down and you journal about what is most important, what do you need in a life partner. And you may just realize that your sexuality isn't so set in stone. Maybe it is deeper. Maybe those answers are those strong impulsive feelings towards hating a certain sex or not feeling comfortable with a certain sex. It could be rooted all the way back to something traumatic that you experienced when you were younger. And when you can sit in those feelings and explore those wounds deep enough, and you can decide that I'm the grown-up now, I get to make the definition, not what my mom says the Bible says you should be with man and woman, and if you're not with a man and woman, something's wrong with you. Nope. You get to kind of decide your own religious, how you treat other people, and how you're going to treat the person you decide to be with, no matter if it's the JJ or if it's a whoo-hoo. Oh, so cheers to everyone out there. You are not alone. I think sexuality is one of the most amazing things. It's one of my favorite.